The rattle wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. John Keller felt the Venom's cold burn spread up his arm, a sticky numbness crawling toward his heart. The air in the field hospital grew thick with the scent of antiseptic and the coppery tang of his own fear. A doctor's frantic whisper cut through the haze. No anti-venom. Not for this species. Not here. Then, the memory surfaced, a desert hermit's rambling tale, spoken over a crackling fire, about the serpent's own cure. It was madness. A final, desperate gamble whispered from the edge of oblivion. His trembling hand closed around the latch of the glass tank, and John Keller made a choice that defied every law of medicine and survival. John's trembling hand edged toward the glass tank. The rattlesnake struck with a sickening thud. A sharp, metallic scent of ozone filled the air. The screen plunged into darkness as venom met flesh. He let a rattlesnake bite him. He drank the poison on purpose, but it wasn't meant for him. It was for the thing growing inside his chest. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and decay. A primal dread took hold, his breath hitching in the suffocating silence. Establishing shot of dusty Texas scrubland, small town. For 43 years, John Keller lived a quiet, predictable life in Odessa, Texas. He was the kind of mechanic who could diagnose an engine's ailment just by its groan. He had a wife named Sarah, a garden that perpetually struggled against the relentless heat, and an unwavering belief in order. John understood the rules of engines, the laws of nature, the principles of medicine. Then a routine physical for lingering back pain shattered his entire reality. The air in the doctor's office grew heavy with the scent of antiseptic and dread. In that sterile silence, his world turned to dust. The CT scan confirmed it. A tumor, mesothelioma.
Aggressive, inoperable, wrapped around his lung like a parasitic vine. The diagnosis carried the metallic scent of sterilized air and the cold touch of stainless steel. It wasn't a prognosis, it was a countdown.
Each tick of the clock now whispered the name of a month he wouldn't see.
The sterile office felt like a tomb.
Months, the doctor said, but chemo would only buy weeks of agony. John was a man who fixed things, a solver of problems. Now, he faced a final, unfixable equation. The despair settled on John like a sodden cloak, a physical weight that threatened to crush him. But he held a secret weapon in the darkness. He was a reader, not of escapist fiction, but of forgotten medical journals, their pages brittle with age, of obscure biology texts smelling of dust and decay, and case studies that documented things medicine chose to forget. From the dusty archives of his own mind, a bizarre and terrifying memory surfaced. A story he'd read years ago about the components of snake venom. How certain peptides, specific cytotoxins, didn't merely destroy healthy tissue. They sometimes attacked the fast-dividing cells of a tumor with ferocious specificity. It was a one-in-a-million chance, a fairy tale wrapped in a death wish. As the music grew uneasy, a subtle, rattling percussion began to rise from somewhere below. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and wet concrete, and every surface felt damp and cold to the touch. Somewhere in the darkness, a rhythmic scratching began, like claws, testing the boundaries of reality. John became consumed, his obsession the only lever to move an unmovable world. He told Sarah he was exploring alternatives, but omitted that this alternative had fangs. The air in his study grew thick with the scent of ozone and dust, a metallic tang hinting at something primal. Driven by a quiet desperation, he sought out a local herpetologist, a reclusive man named Mike. When John laid out his insane theory, Mike didn't laugh. He just went very, very quiet. In the shed's humid stillness, Mike's breath hitched as he processed the implications. The faint scratching from the tanks seemed to grow louder. He finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly, with a primal dread that thickened the air between them. You're talking about playing Russian roulette with a round in every chamber. Venom isn't a targeted missile, John. It's a chemical firebomb. It'll melt your flesh, destroy your kidneys, make you bleed from your eyes before it even sees your tumor. But John was resolute. He wasn't looking for a cure. Mike was hunting for a weapon, a scorched earth policy for his own flesh. He sought to turn the world's deadliest defense mechanism against his enemy, embracing a grim, terminal logic. Every shred of his better judgment screamed against it, yet he saw the chilling sense in the madness. If death was inevitable, he would meet it on his own terms. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and old rock, a tangible dread pressing in from the shadows. His breath hitched, caught between the cold, sticky touch of fear and the resolve to wield annihilation as his final act. He provided a captive-bred western diamondback, a controlled variable. The preparation was medieval. He mapped the tumor's location with meticulous, chilling precision. The air grew heavy with the scent of antiseptic and something metallic, like old coins. He studied venom yield, LD50, and symptom progression with chilling precision. He assembled his death kit anti-venom Mike had procured, a tourniquet, his phone already dialed to 911. To Sarah, he claimed he was going on a solo fishing trip to clear his head. The lie left a bitter, ashen taste in his mouth. John packed the last of his supplies, his movements mechanical, his eyes fixed on the photograph of Sarah. Her face, frozen in a moment of happiness, now anchored him to a reality he was about to shatter. A war raged behind his eyes, a desperate love for her battling the chilling necessity of what came next. Then, The music cut, leaving only the desolate moan of desert wind and a faint, unsettling hum that seemed to vibrate in the teeth. The moment of truth arrived not in a sterile laboratory, but within the silent, sun-bleached confines of a remote hunting cabin. The air was thick with the scent of ancient dust, dry rot, and forgotten pine. John's heart did not race with panic. Instead, a strange, focused stillness settled over him. It was an eerie calm, the quiet before a storm, as he faced the bare surface where the glass tank would soon rest. This was a precise, methodical procedure. He was both surgeon and patient. In agonizing slow motion, John guided the serpent with the long hook. The snake's body coiled tighter, a spring loaded with primal threat. The only sound was the sticky rasp of scales on metal, and John's shallow, hitched breaths. The rattle became a deafening buzzsaw in the silent room. He pressed the tank's opening firmly against the marked spot. His mind didn't register pain or the specter of death. Every thought was consumed by the invader. With a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, John provoked the serpent's defensive lunge. A wet, sharp crack split the air as fangs found their mark. John's body convulsed violently, muscles locking in a sudden, agonized spasm. A ragged, choked scream was smothered as he staggered backward and collapsed into a chair. The agony was biblical. This was no mere sting or burn. It was a white-hot corrosion, a sensation of molten lead being forced into the very fabric of his flesh. A searing wave of fire spread through his veins, followed by a violent surge of nausea. His vision narrowed to a tunnel as the world around him began to fade. Fumbling hands, already swelling and turning a sickly purple, struggled with the tourniquet. The metallic scent of blood mixed with a sharp, chemical odor in the air. Twin puncture wounds marked his flesh, already bruising into a grotesque tapestry of black and blue. The room spun in frantic, nauseating arcs as the 911 on his phone screen dissolved into a blurry smear of light. His breath came in ragged, wet gasps that tasted of iron and cold sweat. For 12 brutal hours, he balanced on a razor's edge, every second stretched into an agony of anticipation. Consciousness came and went, each return bringing fever dreams of the serpent within him, locked in a silent war against a larger, hungering darkness. His torso swelled into a grotesque, bloated landscape of pure agony, the skin stretched taut and mottled like a map of suffering. He retched until his body offered nothing but bile and the acrid taste of iron, the air thick with the sour stench of sickness. With each wave of torment, the certainty solidified. This was not a miscalculation, but a catastrophic, irreversible mistake. 3 days later, John emerged from the cabin, his body a topography of purple and yellow bruises. He moved with the fragile, unsteady gait of a newborn kitten, every muscle protesting. To Sarah, he offered a simple lie, a severe case of food poisoning. The truth of what happened in that cabin was a secret his broken body now carried alone. The lie persisted, woven into the fabric of his reality. Yet beneath that fragile surface, a profound shift had occurred. The tumor's crushing, constant agony, that iron fist clenched around his heart, had loosened its grip. The pain wasn't gone, but muted, receding like a tide, leaving behind the cold, damp dread of what its absence might mean. Dulled. Weeks later, a doctor stared at a new CT scan, then at the old one, his expression shifting from professional focus to genuine bewilderment. The sterile scent of antiseptic couldn't mask the ozone-like charge in the air as he compared the impossible images. His breath hitched when he realized what he was seeing. The trauma had vanished, replaced by tissue that appeared never damaged at all. Doctor, Mr. Keller, I don't know how to explain this. The tumor, it's necrotic, parts have died. It remains, but it's been damaged. What have you done? The doctor's voice was laced with clinical horror, the sterile air suddenly tasting of ozone and decay. John simply said he'd been praying. His reply hung in the cold, heavy air between them. The implication settled like a damp weight. Something beyond medicine had touched this malignancy. The medical team called it a bizarre anomaly, a spontaneous hemorrhage within the tumor. They labeled it a miracle, with a small, John knew the truth. He had weaponized the venom, and it had worked, not as a cure, but as a brutal, desperate counterattack. In the quiet, he touches the raised scar tissue on his side, a permanent mark from both the bite and the surgery that removed the damaged tumor mass. The air smells of old motor oil and something faintly metallic, like dried blood on forgotten tools. John Keller had bought himself another year, a year of sunsets with Sarah, of quiet moments in his garden. He survived the desert's deadliest predator, but his story leaves us with a chilling, unanswerable question. When modern medicine reaches its limit, how far into the darkness would you go to find a weapon? Would you embrace the poison if it was the only thing that could fight the monster inside you? John's war was lost, the outcome written in stone long before the final moment. Yet, in one last, vicious act of defiance, he proved a terrible truth. When faced with the inevitable, the human will to fight can twist into forms of profound, unsettling horror.
If the veil stirred, subscribe and meet the next encounter.